Hi everyone. Before I start, I'd like to thank all of my subscribers. I really want to thank you so much. I really appreciate your support. Today, I'd like to talk to you about a very important aspect of bird photography, that is, bird in flight photography, the way I go about it, my technique. I have used a lot of telephoto lenses. The gear is not really critical. It is important. Whatever gear you have, be it a Canon, Nikon, Tamron, Sigma, I have used the majority of their telephoto lenses. So with that background, now I am using the Nikon Gear D500 camera and the Nikkor 200 to 500 millimeter at 5.6. I am going to try a Sigma 150 to 600 millimeter next week. The contemporary version, I have used the a Canon mount, the 100 to 500, the Sigmas, the Tamrons, and I'd like to revisit the Sigma 150 to 600 millimeter for bird in flight photography. Couple it or pair it with the D500, the Nikon. With the Nikon, I use ISO 1600. So if you shooting information, my setting information, then I'll proceed to the technique. It is usually ISO 1600, but if we have a blue sky and we have a lot of light out there, I go to 800, ISO 800. Occasionally, I'll drop as low as 400, ISO 400. As far as the white balance, I use auto. Sometimes I use cloudy, that way I get that warm tone. With the focus, with the shooting mode, I use continuous. If you are shooting Canon, it's the AI servo mode. But as far as the AF mode, I usually, let me show you first. This is, let me show you through, go here to flight, because let me go to this icon here. Then it's taking longer than usual to load. So this is the AF area mode that I use. The majority of the time, I use the 25-point dynamic area AF. This is the point. This is usually, it's one center point with 20, four clustered around that center point. So this is the mode I use. I use most of the time the 25-point dynamic area AF. Also, I use this mode here, which is the group AF. So I have found that these two, especially this group area AF with large birds, with small birds, let's say we have, let's say doves, uh, rock pigeons, kingfishers, and so on and so forth. I use this mode, the 25-point dynamic area code, area code, area AF birds. What I mean by medium-sized birds, mourning doves, rock pigeons, belted kingfishers, yellow legs, and so on and so forth. This category of birds that are really in this, size. As far as large birds, let's say ospreys, bald eagles, ducks, I use this mode, group area AF. So they have worked really well for me. Whatever mode you're using, if this auto area AF, I use this sometimes if I have blue sky because it tends to work really very well. It picks up the subject immediately. So I use this occasionally, but the majority of the time I'm using the 25 point dynamic area AF. So now on to my technique. Most of the time I have the camera up to my chest. That way I'm ready. Whenever I see a bird, I lift the camera up close to my eye. That way it's easy for me to put the bird in the viewfinder and track it, and then I fire off. So I have the camera up my chest, bring it to my eye when I see a bird. That way it's easy for me to put the bird in the viewfinder. Then I fire off. Let me, oh, let me go back and show you a couple of pictures. So I'm going to show you this picture here of a great blue heron. I was photographing a pair of ospreys when I saw this great blue heron far in the distance. I put the sensor, I was using the 25 dynamic area AF. I put the sensor on the bird. I waited until it flew right in front of me before I fired off. With this bird right here, this is a juvenile double-crested cormorant. The same thing, I was watching a couple of bald eagles along with ospreys. The same thing, I watched this. The key in bird photography, in bird in flight photography, is to locate the bird far enough. 50, 100 yards, preferably sometimes even 200 to 300 yards is really good, because when you spot the bird far away, you put the sensor on it, you track it until it flies close to you, and you fire off. The the same thing, this is an easy shot really with this osprey. The ospreys do this, they hover, trying to locate a fish before they dive. This was really super easy for me. I just have to put the sensor on the bird and wait until I see the wind position that I want, and then I fire off. The same thing here. This osprey seems like it's walking in the air. So I spotted this osprey far ahead, really far away. And then the same thing, I put the sensor on it. I waited until it got close to me and I fired off. This is the same osprey. It was fishing, but it didn't catch a fish. All it caught is this, you know, really triangular type of a stick. This, I was photographing tree swallows when out of the blue this juvenile red-tailed hawk showed up. I was using here the automatic mode, the automatic, AF mode. It was really easy for me. I put the sensor on the bird and I just fired off. This bird seems to have a band right here. Okay, let me see, let me find the bald eagle. This is the same. Oh, by the way, I'm gonna tell you the way I test all my AF modes. I ask my son to help me out. If you can find really a fast kid, a relative, or if you have a kid, try to go with them to the park and try all modes, all your camera modes. Try to challenge all your camera modes and just tell your kid to zigzag and see if what mode works really better for you. For me, I do this all the time, and all the pictures that I took that day of my son, I was using here the 25, the dynamic 25 AF points, and it just works for me. This bald eagle, the same thing. I was photographing common mergansers when this bald eagle out of the blue showed up. I put the sensor on the guy. I waited until it flew right above my head, and I fired off. I got at least 20 shots or so. All of them were really nice, all kind of wind positions. This is the same bald eagle. Uh, these northern shovelers out of the blue. I was photographing ospreys when they just all of a sudden I spotted them maybe 15, maybe 20 yards, and luckily I got a decent picture here. So the key, let me summarize. I mean, in brief, the main technique or the main point is that you spot the bird way ahead of time, 50, 60, 100 yards. It's really hard to miss. I hope that this helps, will help you out. And if you have any questions or if you have any tips that you could help other folks who are having a hard time capturing birds in flight, please put it in the comments below. And until I see you again, you take care and happy shooting. Bye bye.